The moment was live, the cameras rolling, the stage packed with tension. As the audience leaned forward, Jasmine Crockett's voice cut through the noise with surgical precision. Her words were not a whisper, not a suggestion, but a declaration that stunned every person in the room. She spoke of secrets buried deep inside the Trump marriage, secrets that were never meant to surface in front of millions. Melania Trump, known for her carefully guarded poise, froze in place. The confident mask she had worn for years seemed to falter in real time. For a split second, the world watched her eyes widen, her lips tighten, her body stiffen. The atmosphere shifted instantly, as if oxygen had been sucked out of the room. Gasps echoed through the crowd. Journalists scrambled to record every syllable, their hands shaking over keyboards, knowing they had just witnessed a moment that would dominate headlines. The words were brutal, but it was the silence after that made them land like a hammer. And then it happened. Melania swayed, her composure collapsing under the weight of Crockett's revelation. The cameras zoomed in, capturing what millions would later replay. The first lady of a former president visibly crumbling on live television. This was not a staged drama. This was not controlled politics. This was a collapse seen in real time, a human unraveling under the spotlight. And at the center of it all stood Jasmine Crockett, unflinching, unwavering, her eyes fixed on Melania, as if daring her to deny the truth. The shock was total. The room buzzed with whispers, some cheering, some horrified, others unable to comprehend what they had just seen. Social media exploded instantly. Hashtags, memes, live reactions pouring in by the second. The question wasn't whether Crockett had struck a nerve. The question was how deep that strike went, and whether the Trump marriage, already battered by years of speculation, had finally been shattered in the most public way possible. For years, whispers about the Trump marriage had circulated like background noise in American politics. Rumors of distance, of carefully staged appearances, of a relationship more political than personal. Melania, often appearing aloof, had been the subject of countless headlines speculating on her true feelings about her husband's empire. Yet until this moment, those whispers had remained just that. Rumors, never confirmed, always brushed aside as tabloid chatter. Donald Trump had built his public persona on strength, dominance, and control. The image of his family was part of that brand. Melania was the elegant counterpart, the quiet figure standing tall beside him, embodying an aura of mystery that both fascinated and frustrated the public. She rarely spoke, and when she did, her words were measured, carefully polished, always safe. But beneath the surface, there had always been cracks. Former aides had hinted at tension. Leaked accounts described arguments behind closed doors, moments where Melania resisted being dragged into the chaos of her husband's political storms. Yet the Trump machine was powerful, and any noise that threatened the image was swiftly silenced. Jasmine Crockett understood this dynamic. She knew that exposing private truths about the marriage wouldn't just be personal, it would be political dynamite. By choosing a live platform, by dropping revelations without warning, she ensured that the world's eyes would not only see but feel the shock. This wasn't about gossip. It was about power, perception, and breaking the illusion of invincibility that Donald Trump had fought to protect. The timing made it even more explosive. Donald was already under relentless scrutiny, facing investigations, legal challenges, and political battles. The last thing he needed was for his family, his so-called fortress, to become another battlefield. And yet here it was. Melania's collapse wasn't just a private breakdown, it was symbolic. It signaled to millions that the shield had cracked, that perhaps the Trump dynasty was not as unshakable as it pretended to be. And at the center of this chaos was Jasmine Crockett, a woman unafraid to cross lines that others had tiptoed around for years. The stage was set. The players were clear. Melania, the guarded wife, now exposed and vulnerable. Donald, the embattled patriarch, absent yet looming over the entire spectacle. And Crockett, the disruptor, armed with words sharp enough to slice through decades of silence. This was no longer just about a marriage. It was about legacy, control, and the image of power itself. Jasmine Crockett didn't hesitate. She leaned into the microphone and unleashed a wave of accusations that ripped through the hall. Her voice, sharp and unrelenting, carried words that no one had dared to say aloud. She spoke of private separations, of long nights spent apart, of contracts and agreements designed to keep up appearances rather than preserve a marriage. "You want the truth?" she declared, her tone electrifying the air. "This marriage has been a stage play, a performance scripted for cameras and headlines. Melania has lived in silence, chained to the illusion of loyalty, while Donald Trump built his empire on deception." The crowd erupted. Gasps, applause, boos. It was chaos. Some shouted in disbelief, others clapped furiously, while cameras swung wildly to capture every angle. Reporters fired off tweets in real time, their words spreading the revelations faster than television could broadcast them. Melania sat frozen, her face tightening as the words struck deeper. For years she had endured whispers, but never had anyone brought them to the center of a national stage. Each sentence from Crockett was a blow, hammering the image of a dignified, untouchable First Lady into fragments. "Secrets," Crockett pressed on. "Secrets about fidelity, secrets about deals hidden from the public, secrets about a woman forced into silence while her husband demanded obedience." The room went silent for a heartbeat before a roar of noise filled the void. Every news outlet cut in, anchors breaking away from their scripts to announce what was unfolding live. Hashtags like #TrumpSecrets and #MelaniaCollapse shot to the top of social media within minutes. Melania's hand trembled as she reached for a glass of water, her composure slipping. She whispered something to an aide, but the cameras had already captured the moment. Crockett's words had pierced through every wall of control, leaving the once impenetrable image of the Trump family wide open. And then came the personal strike, the detail that stunned even the loudest voices in the room. "You've kept up this marriage for power, not for love," Crockett said firmly, her voice echoing like a verdict. "And the world deserves to know the price you've paid for silence." The hall shook with reactions. Some jeered, some cheered, but no one could deny what had just been said. Crockett had crossed the final line, turning speculation into confrontation, rumor into revelation. Melania's lips parted as if to respond, but no words came out. For the first time in years, she was not the polished, unreadable figure. She was exposed, caught in the storm, and the world was watching. The tension hit its breaking point. Every camera lens zoomed tighter, every microphone strained for the next words. Jasmine Crockett paused, letting the silence linger just long enough for anticipation to burn through the hall. Then she delivered the line that would reverberate across the nation. "Melania Trump has not been a wife," she declared with fire in her voice. "She has been a prisoner of a bargain, trapped in a marriage of power, control, and secrets that America was never supposed to see." The explosion was instant. The audience gasped so loudly it felt like thunder rolling through the room. Journalists scrambled to push out headlines before the words had even finished echoing. News tickers lit up within seconds. Crockett exposes Trump marriage. Secrets live. Melania's face drained of color. For years, she had endured speculation, always protected by distance and composure. But this was different. This was public humiliation on a scale that no First Lady, past or present, had ever faced. Her breathing grew shallow, and in that unbearable moment, her body faltered. The cameras caught it, the sway, the stumble, the collapse. Gasps turned into shouts as aides rushed to her side. Some in the crowd screamed in shock, while others shouted at Crockett, accusing her of cruelty. But Crockett stood motionless, her eyes unwavering, as if she knew this confrontation was inevitable. "America deserves the truth," she said into the chaos, her words cutting through the noise like a blade. "And the truth cannot be silenced any longer." The hall dissolved into pandemonium. Viewers at home watched in disbelief as networks cut to live feeds from every angle, replaying Melania's collapse and Crockett's words in a relentless loop. Social media platforms ignited, each second producing new clips, new memes, new battles of outrage and applause. In that single moment, a private marriage became the most public scandal in America. The symbolism was undeniable, the image of the Trump dynasty cracking under the weight of words that could no longer be contained. The climax was not just Crockett's statement, it was Melania's collapse, captured forever, a visual that would dominate global headlines. And with that, the Trump empire's carefully guarded illusion of control was shattered live before the world. As the dust settled, the world tried to make sense of what it had just witnessed. Melania's collapse wasn't simply a moment of weakness. It became a symbol of a family empire unraveling under the spotlight. News anchors spoke in hushed tones, struggling to balance shock with analysis. Commentators described it as the most devastating blow ever dealt to the Trump image, not from an opponent in a courtroom, but from a voice on a live stage. Jasmine Crockett, standing firm in the storm, didn't retreat. She turned to the cameras, her eyes burning with conviction, and left America with a line that would be etched into memory. "Power built on lies will always crumble," she said, her voice steady. "And tonight, you saw it happen." Her words spread like wildfire, clipped and replayed across every screen, dissected in every newsroom, amplified in every conversation. To her supporters, Crockett had done what no one else dared: expose the inner truth of a family that had long thrived on secrecy and illusion. To her critics, she had gone too far, striking below the belt and dragging private pain into the public arena. But regardless of the interpretation, no one could deny the impact. For Melania, the fallout was merciless. Headlines speculated about divorce, betrayal, hidden contracts, and untold truths buried in years of silence. Images of her collapse became the defining symbol of vulnerability within a dynasty that had always projected strength. For Donald Trump, the silence was deafening. His absence that night spoke louder than any defense he could have mounted. And for America, the event was more than a scandal. It was a revelation. It forced a nation to confront the fragile line between image and reality, between power and truth. Families debated it at dinner tables, pundits screamed about it on television, and social media fractured into endless arguments. The collapse was not just Melania's. It was a collapse of illusion, a collapse of invincibility, a collapse of the myth surrounding the Trump name. As the credits rolled on live coverage, one thing was clear. The spectacle had shifted from politics to history. This moment would not fade like a fleeting headline. It would linger, carved into memory, a reminder that even the mightiest can fall. Not with a bang in the halls of power, but with a whispered truth that could no longer be ignored. Jasmine Crockett had not just exposed secrets. She had ignited a fire that could burn through the very foundation of a dynasty. And as the world replayed the footage again and again, the message remained. The collapse of Melania Trump was more than personal tragedy. It was the spark that redefined a legacy.